Welcome to Da Vinci's Discourse, where the minds of today's most innovative entrepreneurs are unveiled and explored. And my name is Kyle Campbell, your guide on this journey into the depths of the entrepreneurial psyche. So sit back, relax, and get ready to dive into the minds of the greats. This is Da Vinci's Discourse.
Yo, so Jim, it's awesome to have you here, man. Captain Jim Palmer, as your LinkedIn or as your Zoom name says, eh? So tell me about yourself, brother. I'm curious. If somebody were to ask you who you are at a bar, coffee shop, whatever, how would you answer that?
Well, I do get asked that a lot, because we travel, so we're always meeting people, and it kind of depends where I am. So I guess I'm about 23 years into my entrepreneurial journey, and I don't even mention the fact that I've started and grown successful businesses, but I'm a business coach and an author. And part of that, well, that is who I am, but part of that is that's an easy, simple answer people can understand, because you start going down the whole, internet marketing business and different things like that. And then it leads to a longer conversation you may or may not want to have.
Oh, let's get into it, man. That's absolutely the conversation I want to have. So let's get into the internet marketing portion of it. Let's say that I'm a consulting client of yours. You say you do consulting, so let's go down that road a little bit. Let's say I'm
I
running
do coaching.
Coaching, okay. Coaching, consulting. Come on, man. Same thing.
No, they're very different. See,
Tell me the difference.
consulting,
What's the
not
difference?
to correct the host,
Mm-hmm.
consulting is usually gig related. So I'm going to hire you to do this. I'm going to do it. You're going to do a feasibility study. You're going to do this, that, the other thing. Coaching is when you're working typically with an entrepreneur, not necessarily a corporation, helping them do any number of things, whether you're fixing your mindset, fixing your marketing, coming up with a strategy, growth plan. So it tends to be not open-ended, like hey, you're going to a therapist for the next 50 years. It's not that. But coaching is really all-encompassing, where consulting is typically times it's usually got a beginning and an end, and here's your objective type thing.
Okay, interesting. So it's more of a holistic approach then, eh?
It could be. I mean, I'm friends with consultants. One guy's an IT consultant. He gets hired by hospitals and other corporations for 6 to 9 months, sometimes longer, to go in and put in some new software. Perfect example of a consultant. And there's others. I got somebody who's in my coaching group who's an HR consultant. So she'll go in and help them get their, get all the people in their payroll orchestrated correctly or tabbed correctly. She may get hired for, 6 to 9 months and put together employee manuals and do other things. And then she may be gone. Coaching can be ongoing, and it could also be time-based, but it's not necessarily this is what I need, because a lot of people say they don't know what they need, first of all, or they'll say I need this, and then they need all this, all this other stuff. Usually it has to do with mindset.
Right. That's actually interesting. It's the symptom of the problem people think they have, when the actual root of the problem is what you need to address to solve the symptoms. And people often make that confused differentiation, or don't make the differentiation at all. So let's say that
That's
I'm
very true. Oh,
right.
I'm sorry. Let me give you, it's very true, Kyle. Like if someone says, hey, I need help with my marketing, and you go dig into it, and let's say you're doing radio or TV or billboards, you're doing all these different newspaper. I'm going back to my old days, all these different things you're saying, and the owner's saying it's not working. I say, well, okay, you have this, that, but then you get right down to it and you say, well, it's driving this many people into your store, and your staff ignores them. They don't say hello. They just pretend they're not there. They give them crappy service or whatever. Any number of reasons sales aren't going up. In some cases, marketing's not it. It might be bad marketing, right? But you really have to look. One of my clients is a franchise consultant, and we were really diving into, there's a certain segment of the franchise world that is very attractive to her boutique style firm. In other words, it's not the people who have millions of dollars that want to open multiple McDonald's. It's people who want to open maybe an IT support, or maybe a staffing franchise, which both can be run out of the home. You don't need a big office and tons of staff. Typically, maybe $25,000 to $50,000 investment. Where if you want to open up an AMP, a mini market, or a Wawa, depending where you are in the country, that could be $1 million, $2 million. So understanding who your customers is job number one.
And I like to start there with my marketing, more specifically the psychographics, what their pain points are, what their beliefs are, what they have to believe before buying from me. So we'll get into that, man. let's go into the coaching realm. Let's say I hired you to be a coach. Where would we start one-on-one, and we can kind of move through the process that you take people through?
Probably, well, I'll give you the broad brushstrokes, but where are you now and where do you want to be? And I can tell pretty quickly if that even makes sense. Like some people would say, well, I want to go from 0 to 6 figures in 30 days. Not going to be a good fit.
Yeah.
I'm really good at what I do, but I'm not a magician, and I'm definitely not a good swimmer, meaning I can't just throw you a life raft and hopefully it works. I'm not going to take somebody's money unless I'm really sure I can help them. But understanding where they are and what they want to do, and then also probably one of my strengths is seeing other revenue streams. So I'm a big fan of multiple streams of revenue. I've had many different revenue streams in my businesses. I still have 3 of them today. But understanding there are maybe hidden opportunities. So one of the things we'll do is I'll identify: are you looking more for gross revenue? Are you looking for net revenue? Are you looking to build wealth? All completely different things. You know what I mean? You could have $1 million business doing seminars around the country. And if you do $1 million in gross revenue and it costs you $950,000 to actually book the whole space and promote it and give affiliate commissions, you got a $50,000 business. Some people might be happy with a $250,000 membership style business, $250,000 coaching business. Maybe they've only got 90,000, or let's say 100,000 for easy math, in expenses. Well, guess what? They've got a $150,000 business. So it's not about gross, it's about net. And then, kind of figuring out, as I say, what are the steps that you think you need to do to get there, and we'll figure that out.
Right. So I guess it starts with kind of like mapping on a GPS where you're at and then where you want to be. And then it gives you you're able to finally get the navigational path to get there, as opposed to not. No, a lot of people have the goal, but they forget where they're at right now to be able to jot down that path in the easiest and most lucrative way. And so, yeah, there's something to be said about that when it comes to goal setting, where you're at and then where you want to go. So let's say we've mapped this out. And one of the ways you could do it is with ChatGPT. You could have it to be your coach and say, ask me where I'm at. What questions do I have to ask to find out where I'm at right now? And then you can contrast that with where you want to be, and then have it structure with you a strategy to work down. Now you don't have the connection with ChatGPT that you would if you worked with somebody like you, for example, but we can start. It's a starting point to be able to start to map this out. So let's say we've got these 2 points mapped out. Okay, how do we start to navigate between the two of them? Where do you start in terms of getting the step-by-step, like on Waze or maps, getting the turn left in 250 meters kind of a thing? How do you get there?
Kind of depends on where you are. I mean, I seldom will work with people who had ground zero. It's just way too time consuming. But let's say somebody's got a business and maybe they're doing $80,000 or $100,000, and they'd like to grow their business. It's really a function of getting in front of more eyeballs. So we live in a content-driven marketing sphere, so to speak. So what kind of content are we talking about? Well, you're talking about videos. You're talking about audio podcasts. You're talking about books, ebooks. You're talking about blog posts. You're talking about going out and being a speaker, all putting on your own seminars. All these different things are getting in front of certain groups of people. And while the messaging may be similar, or in fact even the same, because people either consume information, with their eyes through video, they listen through podcasts, they read through books, any number of things. You have to be hitting all these different people. All of them could be prospective clients. You have to be hitting them on the modality in which they like to be learning. So that's why a lot of people, oh, I'm posting to my blog. Tell me about your podcast. Well, I'm going to start one this year. They haven't started a podcast yet. Well, good. I mean, get going on that, right? And some people aren't doing video, or they don't want to do live, or they don't want to be a speaker. All of these things are kind of like the ingredients to a great cake or great pizza or something. They're all important. Some function in larger degrees than others, but you got to find out what they're doing now and what's working. In most cases, I'll tell you, Kyle, one of the biggest things that people have a hard time with. They're trying to do step 1, step 2, step 3, and just like climbing a ladder, one rung at a time. And nobody says you have to do that. I mean, part of it's part of our culture. You go to grade 1, 2, 3, 4, and you keep going. Well, some people happen to be smart enough. You can skip middle school and go right to high school, and then next thing you know, you're in college. Like some TV show, but it actually does happen if you're super smart. Well, nobody says you got to go from 50,000 to 100,000. You could actually build a six-figure business your first year, go to 250 your second year, and go to 500,000 next year. The question has to do with how much time you're willing to put into it, and are you willing to work in a messy kitchen? Meaning, I'm not going to wait for this to be perfect. Then I'm going to launch that. And then I'm going to
Yeah.
start my podcast. I'm going to get 12 recorded. I'm going to do unbelievable editing and blah, 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 lighting. And then I'm going to launch the. No, you do your best work, but not perfect work because there is no such thing.
I love that, man. And I love the podcast route because you can just take the content and repurpose it to all the different mediums from the content that you generate with the podcast. Because there are all kinds of modalities, like you said, and target audiences. Let's say target audience A would prefer podcast, B would prefer blog, written content. Like for example, if you're selling publishing work, maybe your target audience would be more inclined to be reading. So I like to base it off the
Mhm.
target audience at the end of the day, right? Entrepreneurs tend to be visually oriented because we can see, or visionary beings, so we can see, imagine what it could be, what things could be to be able to start the solution to solve that. And it depends, like audio engineers, for example, maybe they'd prefer listening to podcasts as opposed to, because these are the modalities that we live in, so we prefer them. Same way that you have a learning modality in school, for example. And that's why a lot of entrepreneurs hate fucking school because it sucks, it's not
Yep.
built for us. And so there's a major disconnect there. Okay, so how do you know what content to create for your target audience? How do you know what's going to be resonating with them? And then we can get into the traffic side of it so we can start to really build a business here.
Well, you got to start with who you're. It's always more about who your customer is than what you're selling, how you're selling, or even the price. It's always about who. So getting to know them, who are they? And as you say, what are their pain points? What do they want to accomplish in working with you? And by the way, it's not always, 2 + 2 = 4. One of my clients he does something called somatic healing, and he does a whole bunch of other things. People that come to him because whether they have frozen shoulder or they have other issues, he can help them with the pain part of it, but it's usually a symptom that's buried that he has to figure out, right? Kind of functional medicine is very similar to that. So in somebody's business, or if your business is being a service provider of X, Y, and Z, you have to know what it is, and you have to meet them where they are, right? So you have to figure out who your customer is. It's what I was doing when I told you about my the franchise person I was talking to. I said, who's actually buying these franchises? And she told me very specifically, it's mostly women, kind of 35 to 50. So that's a very big help. Let's stop advertising in certain publications and let's start doing this and focus 100% on that. So we're attracting the right person, right? So figuring out the who is probably job number one.
Yeah, the psychographics are what I like to focus on there. The demographics help, especially for targeting and the simplistic targeting like that. But I love the psychographics where you get into the belief systems. What are they believing now, and what actions does that cause them to take because of those belief systems? And then you can move them towards the new beliefs that align with buying your product. And so you can look at again where they're at and where they need to be in terms of belief systems, and then you bring the two together. It's fascinating. I love that. The psychographics are so cool to me, man. And you can use AI to be able to identify them. It'll scan reviews, comments, find pain points, and be able to deliver what you need to be able to market effectively. Yeah, so it's freaking cool, man. What about AI with you? How are you using AI right now?
Not too much.
Oh, come on, man.
Yeah.
That's not what I like to hear. Why not? Why not?
I'm not jumping all over that. Well, first of all, I'm going to be retiring the end of this year. So, um, yeah, it's just, I mean, I'm sure it's doing some pretty cool things. It's not a big part of my business. I am a coach. I do not rely on AI for coaching, for intuition, or any kind of things like that. So that's not my bailiwick.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, we're using AI to get clients, which is my favorite part of it. Well, one of my favorite
Hmm.
parts. I got a lot of favorite parts with it, but we're using it as part of our AI agency. So the AI goes out, brings clients back, and generates calls without us having to do anything for free, which is the best part about it. Yeah.
Wow.
I love it, man. Yeah. So what's the next step? Let's say we've got the target audience, we've got some content created. Where do we move it from there?
Well, I don't know if this is old school, but I don't know if you've heard of the AIDA formula, right? You
Yeah,
you
yeah.
you get attention, interest, desire and then action. So the next thing is to create desire. Well, how are you going to do that? Well, you got to be serving them content that's going to do that. It's going to be of interest and create desire. Desire, get them to buy a book, get them to take a course, get them to go to a webinar, do something that's going to help you start the relationship and build trust. That's mostly how it's done in the online world. Then the online world is often used successfully to move people into a live seminar, whether it's a micro event like 50 people in a room, or whether like Russell Brunson putting thousands of people in a room, for funnel hackers and things like that. That's where you can really kind of, it's a lot of sizzle, but that's where you can, get the steak also. Because you're spending 2-3 days immersed in this stuff. And believe me, every single thing is very well choreographed. So that's what I've been doing for a long time.
How do you know what offers to use in what sequence? Because in one, let's say Russell, for example, expert seekers led to some upsells in the back, which led to the webinar that sold ClickFunnels. It actually, more accurately, it sold a course that gave ClickFunnels away for free when you bought the course. Nobody really realizes that. It's a little key differentiation that's killer when it comes to stacking the value in your favor. So let's answer that, man. How do you know what offers to use to what audience, and how do you know when to sequence them?
Test them. It's the only way to know.
Yeah. Okay. So where do you start with the testing process?
Well, simple thing, especially in the online world, is A/B split test. So you could be testing pricing, you could be testing headlines. You're always trying to beat the control. So if you're doing paid advertising, Google AdWords, Facebook ads, possibly LinkedIn ads, depending on your business, which one is pulling, and then you run something up against it. Maybe you just change one thing. Maybe it's one word. Maybe you just change the picture. Maybe change the offer. I mean, are people drawn to a book for $4.99, or are they drawn to a free book with $6.99 shipping and handling? Seems pretty crazy. More people get a free book with $6.99 shipping and handling than buying a book for $4.99. But you only know that from testing, and that's the beauty of online marketing. You know that instantly. I mean, years ago, when I published my first book, there was no publishing on demand. I'd ordered 3,000 books, and take a shipment into my garage and hope that I sold them. And but things are different today. In the online world, pretty quickly which way you're going. So it really is a function of testing. Again, knowing who your audience is, knowing what the pain points are, and testing the various offers just to get them into the inner circle, into the funnel.
Did you sell those 3,000 books?
It did. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And more.
That's what I'm talking
100%.
about.
I've published 7 books and 9 ebooks.
Wow. How do you write a book that is going to be a direct response piece that you can give away for $5 or free or whatever it might be? How do you look at the book writing process from a marketing lens?
Writing a book and writing a direct response book are completely two different things, right?
Yeah.
So first of all, it's hard for me to tell somebody how to do it because it's going to go right over their head. No disrespect, but if you don't understand direct response copywriting, it's nothing I can give you in a nice compact 3-minute answer. But you have to understand it's about the relationship and walking them down a path. It's about planting seeds, not just teaching. It's not about saying how great you are, but weaving them through the process so that by the end of reading this thing, they understand how great you are, how many people that you've helped, and there's an opportunity to potentially work with that person. That's the essence of a book like you just talked about. But yeah, that would be a whole course in and of itself.
Are you familiar with Robert Cialdini, Persuasion?
Sure.
Yeah, so you do webinars, right? And so you look at the webinar content. You do webinars, right? Correct?
I used to. Yep.
Okay, so you look at the webinar content the exact same way that you would look at writing a direct response book. Is you're looking at one of the ways to do it is you look at the beliefs that they have, like I said, and then you can structure the content to to kind of create a domino effect of shattering these beliefs so that by the time they get to the offer, there's an identity shift so that they want to buy to continue to step into this new identity, which is so freaking cool. The same thing goes into creating direct response books. One of our publishing companies, we interview people and we turn the interviews into books using AI. And it's amazing. It's very, very cool. An hour and a half, 2 hours. We got a 100-page book written, and it's a perfect direct response lead magnet to be used, especially for getting leads in the door. So it's
There you
awesome.
go.
Yeah, it's badass. What about in the past, dude? How did you go about selling the 3,000 books?
Speaking for the most part
Yeah.
and promoting myself through paid ads, through a lot of social media. Um, I was a guest on about 300 podcasts over about a 2 year period,
Hmm.
maybe a 3 year period. I went around the country, spoke 32 times in 14 months. Sold a lot of books that way, but also sold people into my first online program, No Hassle Newsletters. And then, of course, now I'm building my email list, and then every time I launch a new business, boom, I have
Hell yeah.
a customer list that already knows, likes, and trusts me. So it's just keep going from there.
I love it, man. What are some corollaries you've noticed in terms of the past direct response marketing and what people are doing online these days? You know, old school direct response newsletters or mailing pieces, and online copywritten VSLs, for example. What are some ways that you see those being similar and different?
Oh, one of the things I tell people that think email's the be all end all. And by the way, I'm not poo-pooing. It's a very important part of your process, but they think email's everything because there's no paper and ink, there's no postage. Well, the only way to get 100% deliverability rate is put it in their friggin' mailbox at the end of their driveway. At least you're getting 100% deliverability rate that way. And if it's designed properly, they're going to look at it at least. They're not going to throw it out without looking at it. So if you got the right if it's designed and folded and everything, so there's actually a headline, not just a mailing label they see, you got a good chance they're going to pop the top or a little wafer seal, and they're going to open it up and read your newsletter. So you build top of mind awareness. I mean, that's why newsletters still work today amazingly well. I mean, I've got clients been with me for freaking 18 years, still using the program.
Huh.
So yeah, so I think a lot of people, I don't know, a lot of people, but many people try and do the cheap way out, which is online only. And you could build a nice online business, but it just depends on how fast you want to go and how you're willing to use leverage to get there.
Right. Yeah, dude. I love taking it offline because everybody, like you said, is only online. Even phone calls. People don't like to get on the phone. And so I'm always trying to do the opposite of what everybody else is doing, more or less of the time. And I'm trying to, like you said, get in people's mailboxes, make sure it's delivered. And Gary Halbert used to talk about how Americans or people in general open their mail in front of the trash can. There's two
That's
piles
right.
it goes into the trash or something you're going to open. And
Hmm.
you said that you put a headline on the outside of your envelope. I don't. I'd like to just have make it so that it
I
looks
didn't say envelope. I
personal.
said newsletter.
Okay, okay. So what do you have on the envelope
I
to make sure
designed
it's
my
open?
newsletters as self mailers, so they don't go in an envelope. They're self
Ah, I
mailers.
see. Interesting.
And so the
Mm,
newsletter is sitting there in with the pile of mail. You can see it's a
I
newsletter.
got you.
There's no envelope
Mm,
to have to open. So first of all, you save money because you don't need an envelope.
that's fair.
But actually, the way I've designed my newsletters, whether it's a 2 page, 4 page, whatever, the way it's folded, it has to be a mailing label on one side, but the other side is something attractive, and it's not like half the copy folded over. It's purposely designed so when they
Mm.
look at it, go, "Oh, cool, that's pretty neat. Let's see what else is inside."
And you're still doing that today.
Yeah.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying the podcast, and I want to let you know that I've got a free book that you can get if you want to tap into more of these resources. And you can get that for free at kylesbook.com. Back to the podcast.
Freaking cool, man. I love that. So see, I love direct mail because it's totally different than what everybody else is doing, and it's got value. You got weight in your hands. It's got a different perception to it as opposed to email. That it's yeah, you can get a lot of emails, but you don't get many direct response letters in the mail these days, and so you can stick out. One
Yep.
of the things I'm doing, man, is using AI, and I keep mentioning AI. I know you're not a big AI guy, but I want to explain the way I'm using AI for this because you'll think it's cool. I'm having AI draft a unique sales letter for each individual that gets sent a direct response piece. So I'll have them fill out a quiz. It gives me a bunch of inputs. That quiz automatically gets sent to the AI, that the AI copywriter, I guess, that writes the sales letter based on their inputs. Very, very tailored towards the quiz results in terms of the copy that's going to be written. And then it generates a live direct to that individual sales letter for them. And the conversion rates on that are just insane because of how personalized it is. It's like, and a lot of people don't know about the AI piece, so they think that I hand wrote, not necessarily hand. but
Right, right.
you can do hand because you can use,
Individualized.
yeah, they see it so personalized for them that they're like, okay, so this is for me. This person took a lot of time out of their day to create this for me. I'm gonna go check out this webinar, or I'm gonna go check out this video that he's talking about that would be perfect for me. And
Hmm.
that's it's so cool, man. What are some ways that you've found work online to start leveraging your direct response mailing history? What are some ways that you've used online, let's say funnels or whatever it might be, to generate significant income recently?
Well, I don't know what your term of recently. I've been kind of semi-retired for 5 years. I'm retiring the end of this year. No Hassle newsletters, amazing program. We've had over 1,200 members in there. Been running that basically on autopilot. I've been just coaching my clients 3 days a week now for coming up on 8 years. If you're looking for what's the latest and greatest, I'm probably the wrong guest to ask you that
No, I'm
because
not,
I haven't
dude.
had.
I'm looking for corollaries with what's worked in the past because you got the history behind you, and so I'm looking to see how you view online marketing with the lens that you've earned through the years of learning it without the internet.
For me, it's all about positioning. It's about creating an amazing brand and positioning yourself as the go-to authority. It's a common phrase, but some people can pull it off and some people can't. You can only pull it off, by the way, if you have the chops. I mean, there's a lot of people, oh, I'm going to help you build a 6 or 7 figure business and you're starving on $38,000 a year. That's somebody who probably shouldn't be taking people's money in that regard. It's my personal opinion. I know it's a free country, but there are certain things that work consistently better. For me, video has been very powerful.
Hmm.
I've started that in 2009. I started my podcast in 2009, about 600 episodes now. I'll be wrapping that up the end of June. But the thing that has probably worked for me the most is serving my audience genuinely and openly without filter, which is hard for a lot of people. They think, oh, I'm going to tell you something really cool, but the other 5 really cool things you can have for $2,000. I've always served my audience, and that has blessed me with enough clients that say, that's really cool. I want to work with you. And so that's always been my style. I know it's not, there's other people who do things differently, but that's what worked very well for me.
I like that a lot. You see a lot of the webinars that people put out there, it's not content based, it's not based on helping people, it's only based on making the sale at the end. Where I like to do a hybrid approach. They'll have the content that provides real value and they get the reciprocity bias kicking up, as well as getting those belief systems in place for them to want to buy at the end. Yeah, very cool, man. And you're a newsletter guy. And so what have some lessons been in terms of getting conversions off your direct mail pieces in the mailbox been? How can I improve that?
Well, the first thing is a newsletter is not a sales letter.
Okay,
Uh,
all right. I
you
look
know
at it
what?
as a sales letter.
If
So
you read my first book, it's a sales letter in disguise, meaning that
yes,
every
exactly.
newsletter does not have an offer. It's not filled with coupons. Otherwise, it's just a supplemental flyer that comes in the mail that looks like, from Publix or Kroger or whatever grocery store you're near. So a newsletter is meant to be a relationship building tool, right?
Right.
So the longer customers stay connected with you, the more likely to refer to you, the more likely to buy more often, buy higher value things, etc. So the first thing you want to do is you want to build not name brand awareness if you're sending it to your previous customers or current customers, but you want to stay top of mind, and because people are just inundated with messages, millions and millions of messages every day. So you could have really good service today from some service provider, and then 3 weeks from now or 3 days from now, your neighbor says, "By the way, you were raving about who is that guy or gal? I need to go get him." Chances are you're not going to know their name. You don't have to be my age to be forgetful. People are going to be like, "I don't friggin' know." I don't know. I can tell you where they live, or I could look it up, or I'll tell you, but they don't know. So
Mm.
first of all, if you're getting every month in the mail, just like your magazines that you subscribe to, boating, RV, fishing, whatever you're into, you're getting those magazines every month. It comes like clockwork. That's the other thing about newsletters. Make sure send it like clockwork. But it's filled with information that is informative, it's inspiring, and it tells a little bit about what you're doing by way of a success story, is what I call it. It's not filled with coupons. It's not filled with offers. It very rarely filled with anything like that. On occasion, I will say maybe 3 or 4 times a year, you could use a freestanding insert, which is, let's say you got a 11 by 17 folded into 8.5 by 11. That's a 4-page newsletter. So that's all fun information, non-salesy, but you could put a freestanding insert in there just 11 by 17 sheet, maybe canary, green, doesn't matter. And there could be something of promotional value there because that's just the flyer that's coming in with the newsletter. So that's how a lot of my clients have used the newsletter to build their business. But the newsletter by itself is a relationship building tool. It's not a sales driver per se.
But you look at it as a sales letter in disguise. And so the way I look at a news, and I love that, by the way, the way I look at a newsletter is the content is all about providing value, but then there's one call to action based on the content for them to take that next step, whether it be to consume a free webinar to move them even further with more value. But I'm not looking at it as offer, like exactly like you said, like a Publix kind of a sheet where all the offers are bananas,
Right.
tomatoes, all the sales of the week. It's one piece of content leading to one specific next step. What do you think about that? With leading with more value, but then still
It
taking
could
them down the
work.
sales funnel.
Not many people are going to, in my opinion, are going to read a informational newsletter, which is probably going to be read in less than 10 minutes and go, oh, here's a webinar. Let me go sign up. That's not the purpose, in my opinion. Now, the way I think a newsletter could be a sales letter in disguise. So one of my clients was an insurance broker. They did both commercial and residential. And I said, how much crossover is there? And it turns out there wasn't. Some of his commercial clients also obviously owned homes, so he got that business, but it usually didn't go. So I said, why don't we make more people aware that you do both? And said, how do we do that? And I said, well, tell me a success story. How did you help somebody that's a commercial client? He goes, oh, I got one just off the top of his head. He goes, we got a commercial account. We saved them $12,000 on their premiums because they were being overcharged, blah, 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 blah. Now, I assume or it's pretty common knowledge that if an insurance broker wants to offer you an audit, it's an opportunity to come sit in your house or your office and do a sales call, right? But in this case, we wrote the article about what they did for this guy. And the headline that I wrote was local manufacturer saves $12,000 in insurance premiums. Subheadline, a little smaller. Here's how we did it. And so then people will shit. I didn't know you even did that, but then they read it. And so at the bottom, the one simple sentence, because he almost wanted to push me to like, let's drive him somewhere else. I said, here's what we should do. If you're interested in finding out if we could save you $12,000 or more or less, give Ron a call at 610, blah, 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 blah. We look forward to hearing from you. That was the only call to action I recommended. And it worked.
No kidding. Eh?
So it's not hitting them over the head. Oh,
right.
People are getting a little tired of, okay, getting my email and name just to get, the document or special report or webinar. And it still works, by the way. I'm not saying it doesn't, but, it depends on what the type of clientele you want to get is. So to me, it's more like, it was after I had that customer and I was writing my book, I came up with the sales letter in disguise because it can have very, very good results for building your business, but it's not a sales letter.
I like that. I like the soft call to action as opposed to making it overly structured towards it, because people can feel it, right? If it's all biased towards the offer that's being led to at the end.
People know icky. They can feel it, they can sense it, and they don't like it.
Yeah, interesting, right? So you base it around the content, providing value instead of just only doing it with the mindset of driving a sale, which is hard for a lot of people because that's the mindset with the typical internet entrepreneur is I'm gonna get new clients, and then they forget about the building of the relationships that they're going to continue to buy from them, and they sacrifice that for the immediate sale. And
that's the other thing that's probably different about me than some of the, we'll say, newer coaches. I'm a big fan of slowing down the sale. You're not going to go from, hi, I'm Jim, here's my ebook, would you like to join my $45,000 coaching program? Slow down the sale, build some value. By the way, half the people that were in my $45,000 coaching program came in at my $497 a month program. And then about 3 or 4 months later, on average, I'm giving some dirt here, on 3 to 4 months into their normal 12-month commitment, they go, how do we go faster? Let's fix that. But I've showed them unbelievable value in 3 to 4 months, so much so they're so excited. It's hard to get somebody that excited all the way at the beginning. I don't care how eloquent you are. I don't care how much your book is. I don't care no offense, how much AI, all that. You have to start structuring a relationship that's built on delivering value and meeting their expectations or exceeding them. Only then will the the credit card start flying out of the wallet, because you've already done what you said you're going to do, perhaps more. Then it's not a
Yes.
sale. There's a magical part of sales, which is when you've got the service provider or salesman, saleswoman, whatever, service provider and the potential customer. And you're kind of doing the dance, however you want to structure your sales presentation. But there's a point in that relationship, and I don't know if it's a half an hour or 3 weeks or whatever it is, but there is a point where this person says, I really want this, and this person says, I really want to help you. And now you get to transition and you get to be that man who or woman who makes it happen. Now I'm going to be the one that's going to, like, let's make this happen. You stop being the salesperson and
I like it.
you become the
Yes.
facilitator of
Mhm.
something really cool. But
Right.
but you have to have patience for that strategy to work. And
You
that's what
know,
I mean by slowing down the sale.
it's interesting, man. I like that a lot. The way I think about it is if you're at like a grocery store, for example, let's say you're at the till, you're across the table or across the conveyor belt or whatever from the person who's selling you something. And so there's a
Hmm.
divide. And a lot of people don't think about it consciously, but unconsciously, let's say you're at a realtor brokerage office and you're sitting across the table from the realtor who's looking to sell their house and you're looking to buy it. There's a divide there. And what you're talking about is being able to take the customer to your side of the till, have no divide there, and look at it from their point of view as though you're just trying to help them, see how you can be of service to them. And if that entails making the sale, then buying something, then great. If not, if it entails referring them to somebody else where you don't make any money, fine. You're not attached to the result. You're just genuinely trying to help that person. And then that's when that strategy really works. The question is, how do you detach the emotion or the desire to making the sale to have that long-term viewpoint? It's
Yeah.
hard.
Well, as a customer, it's helpful if you're ready to walk away, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Um, I mean, there's years ago, I don't even know how long ago, let's say 30 years ago. I know I was pretty young, still had 4 kids at home, and we didn't have a lot of money, and I needed a car. Didn't have a lot of money, so I go down to the car lot and said, I can afford that. And it was black sedan. I didn't even know what it was, but it was ugly. I didn't want it, but I think it would get me back and forth to work, right? And the salesman wanted to sell that car. I kind of wanted to buy it, but I didn't want to buy it. But I wasn't going to buy it for a penny over whatever the price was, whatever I was thought it was worth. And he kept trying to get me into this, that, and other thing. I said, here's what I need you to understand. I hate this car. I don't want this car. But if you give it to me for this price, I will buy it tonight. And then he sort of came to an understanding. This might not be the perfect analogy, but it sort of is, because he came to an understanding. If I just find a way to make this and Jim finds a way to this, now we just have to make it happen. So he stepped in and he goes,
Ah.
would you be willing to, instead of 36 months, go to like 44 months? Yes. I didn't care.
Hmm.
I mean, there's another lesson here, by the way. People are more concerned with what's the monthly payment than they are the total price. Otherwise, if you're going to buy a house for $400,000, but after 30 years of payments, it costs you 1.2 million. Well, you don't have 1.2 million. You don't even have $400,000, but for, let's say, $2,500 a month, I can be a homeowner, right? So it's all about the monthly payment. And when he figured that out, and then instead of going for a 36-month loan on a used car, he figured out I can get you 40 months, and that gets you down to whatever I needed to be at. He became the facilitator of both of us
Right.
getting what we wanted.
Mm. He went on your side of the deal. He wasn't trying to say, "Oh, you got to up it to this," which he kind of did, but he went through it through the lens that you were comfortable with, which was X monthly payment. And there's another lesson to be learned there, because if that salesman would have said, "Okay, so you just said I don't give a fuck about the car. I don't like the car. It's not what I want, but I need to have a car and it's going to work for
Yep.
what I need it for." If that
Yep.
salesman didn't take that in and said, "Oh, well, the car it's got this black paint and the wheels are shiny and it's got this engine," and it's like you didn't give a shit about any of that. All you cared
I
about
didn't
was it
need that.
getting from A to B reliably. And the
That's
salesman,
right.
right, and see, and so he didn't put his reality onto you, push what he thinks that you needed to sell based on what he needed, we would need to hear to buy. He went into your reality and was able to position it so that it was fitting
That's
your buying
right. And
criteria.
he sold a car, probably got a commission. I bought something for, I don't know how long we had it, 2 years and whatever, but I got something for a payment I could afford at the time. And that's the beauty of what happened there. But it was so cool because there was a lot of honesty going on
Yeah.
on both sides.
Mm.
And luckily he understood what he needed to do and found a way that I didn't think of it. I didn't know you could go for a 40-month loan or something, but he knew some bank that would do it. And
Hmm.
that brought me into the monthly payment I could afford at the time.
So walk me through how that ties in directly with what we were talking about with the newsletters or marketing in general. How can we
Well,
extract lessons
here's
from
here's
that?
a here's a good analogy based on my current business model. So I did 8 3-day live seminars called Dream Business Academy. I started, I think, in 2013 or 14. I did them up until COVID, and then I never started. So I did 8 of these micro events, very, very successful. And what I figured out it was either the third one or the fourth one, X number of people came in at the entry level of my coaching program. Some people are in at the middle and some people at the high end VIP. And I thought, you know what? VIP, which was at the time 24.97 for 12 months. Um, let's just say that's $44,000. I don't know if that's exact math, but it'll go with the point. And I thought to myself, this was like 3 or 4 days before I was doing my next event. And I already had the order forms, invitation forms, and I had everything printed up. And I thought to myself, and I remember this, I pulled the car over and I got my calculator on my phone. And I went, $44,000 divided by 12 is the 24.97. 44,000 divided by 18 is 19.97. I think it actually worked out perfectly that way. I didn't have to like fudge the number even by $1.
Hmm.
And I thought, interesting. So I scrapped all the order forms, the 4-color thing, which told about my program, and I quickly reprinted others. And when I pitched that program, I got at least a 50% bump in the people saying yes. Keep in mind, it's the same $44,000 investment, but the payment was 19.97 a month instead of 24.97 a month.
But you get the same
And
amount
that
of
was it.
capital at the end of the day. So
Same amount of capital.
yeah, yeah,
And
interesting.
the reality is, being an 18-month program, they actually got more of my coaching than in the 12-month program. But I like doing what I'm doing. And in the end, some people went for 2 terms, or one person went for 3 terms. Some people went for VIP and then just backed down because they didn't want to leave, but they didn't want another, all the stuff that goes with it. But the point is, I figured out that monthly payment thing. I might
Mm.
have been driving thinking, oh, remember when I bought that piece of crap car? And
Yeah.
I remembered, wait a minute, and that's what I did, right? So Kyle, it was all about the monthly payment. And when I presented it, and by the
Awesome.
way, my
Mm.
entry level program has always been $497 a month. But I think at the time my middle program was 1,500 a month. So it was like 500, 1,500, 2,500. Suddenly it went from 500 to 1,500 to 2,000, round numbers. So
Mm.
the difference between the middle program and the one that has everything in the kitchen sink was only 500. And people went, well, crap, for another 500, I can get this.
Yeah. Mm.
That hopefully people that are started watching this interview are still watching, because that right there will change somebody's life if you're doing sales or seminars or coaching or whatever. That right there is gold.
I love that, dude. And Apple does the same thing. I don't know if you purchased from Apple. If you look at, like, let's say I just bought this computer from Apple. It's the
Uh-huh.
M3 MacBook Pro, whatever. And what they do, and they got me, man. They got me with this exact thing that you were just talking about. I was looking at the base model one. It was, let's say, I don't know, $1,500. And
Hmm.
I was like, okay, well, I need more RAM than 8 gigs. So I was upgrading to 16 gigs of RAM. Then it was, let's say, $1,800. And then I was like, wait a minute, it's 18, but I need to be able to, the next one up, the MacBook Pro with the Pro processor, which is like a lot faster. It's got an extra fan, all kinds of goodies and whatever. That was only $200 more than buying the computer with 18, with 16 gigabytes of RAM. And so I was like, well, wait a minute, I might as well just spend the extra $200 and go up to the next level. And so,
Yep.
like, Jesus Christ, I was buying it for $1,500. It got me up to 1,800 because it didn't have what I needed. And then I was like, all right, an extra $200, whatever. And so that was an extra 25% on the sales price that I wasn't expecting to pay. But because they did exactly what you just told me, so the question becomes, how do we structure offers like that? How do we, like, tactically speaking, go about taking our offer and being able to have it so it's almost a no-brainer to go to the next stage without you having to necessarily sell anybody? I didn't have to talk to an Apple salesman. I sold myself on it based on the perceived value. So how do we take our offers and
But
work
there's
that?
a lot that goes into the relationship Apple has with their customers, past, present, and future.
Yeah.
There's a lot of prestige, there's a lot of peer pressure, there's a lot of cool things, and it's a nice computer. somebody coming to my event who's never met me before, I'm not going to go from, hey, I'm Jim, thanks for coming. By the way, who wants to give me $2,000 a month? Now there's 2 days that go in before I then make the invitation. And
Mm,
again, that 2 days is completely structured. They're so excited about VIP because I happen to mention that many times that when
interesting.
I then talk
Mm.
about VIP, they're like, that's the one you've been talking about.
Ah,
And that's how it happens. So that is a somewhat of an example of slowing down the sale. I obviously, but I've had them there for 2 full days. It's an amazing deal. But not using that scenario, if you have somebody, if somebody came onto my email list, and I have to coach some of my clients not to do this. They come on the email list. Next thing you know, three days later, they get the tripwire. Hey, do you want to buy this for $7? And if they say yes, then they're up to 49. It's okay if it works, but it doesn't work enough, in my opinion, to sully the reputation that is available to you if you would simply slow down the sale and build the trust and
I
build the
like that.
value by sharing and serving your audience with what you know how to do.
Hmm.
And so if they get on your email list and you start giving them some really good content for 2 days, 5 days, 2 months, 3 months, he's been giving me really great stuff. And then there's an offer for
Mm.
something, could be
Mm.
$7. Now you're in the business, and now they're going to start going down that ride, but they're going to go down slowly.
I love it, man. And it's so different towards what you see other internet marketers doing now. It's always the funnel. It's always you start $5 free. The free plus shipping book gets me because it's like, dude, it's not free. Yeah, they say free book, but like, why am I putting my credit card in then? If it's not free, so I'm paying for something, so it's not free. And then
Yeah.
they get you, and then it's by the end of the funnel, you're like, oh, well, this person just wanted my money at the end of the day. I think the industry is shifting now. 4 or 5 years ago, funnels were big. And I made a lot of money with it back then. But nowadays, I'm thinking it's starting off with more value. Exactly what you're saying, really. This is where the trends that I'm seeing are going. Start them off with a ton of free value up front, so much so that you can't even believe it. Everything that used to be sold in a $2,000 course, given away for free. You got so much reciprocity, so much authority and trust that then you can sell them something at a higher price point without having to
Hmm.
do the whole song and dance going from 29 to 79 to 149. You can get them up there right away because you've been building that value over so much time. And it's
That's
like what you
right.
say, right? You're not introducing yourself. Hey, give me $2,000 now. You over a long period of time, slowing down the sale. There's something to be said about that. It's counterintuitive, but I like it, man. So yeah, beautiful, dude. What's something that I should be asking right now that if I were to ask would be able to provide value based on everything that you've learned over the years?
We sort of asked this, but I guess what's been the biggest game changer, I guess. Um, uh, to me, the biggest game changer, well, a couple things. Number one, understanding the difference between wealth creation and driving revenue. So I'm 100% about creating wealth because wealth gives you financial freedom. That gives you time freedom. You can drive revenue all day long, but if it's just churning of cash and well, so anyway, there's that. But probably the single greatest piece of advice I got from Dan Kennedy was uh, some people get a customer so they can then make a sale. The smart people make a sale so they can get a customer.
Hmm.
Because once you got a customer, then, and he didn't use this language, I kind of added in my own description, but then you maximize the profitability of each and every customer relationship. And you do that by a lot of things I've just said, but you don't have that customer until you make that sale. And you've got a much better chance of making a sale if you slow down the whole process, less icky, smarmy, whatever. But then you got the customer. Now let's walk them down the path.
Hmm. Hmm.
Years ago, after I know Hassel News was going really well, and I joined this mastermind, and this guy said to me, I understand what you're doing there. You got a lot of writers creating content for you, blah, blah, blah. But Jim, I also see you doing a lot of social media. This way back in the day. And he goes, have you ever thought to take some of that content and do whatever you need to do and use it as a social media program? Holy crap, I'm already paying these writers to create all these articles for the newsletters. And so then what I did is I just had a VA take a lot of these articles and turn them into blog posts with a couple little tweaks here, there. And sometimes you just add maybe a subheadline. maybe just whatever. So we turned them into blog posts, and then I called it so I went from No Hassle Newsletters, then I created No Hassle Social Media. And with No Hassle Social Media, every month you got tons. I think we're up to like 80 to 100 pieces of content on a variety of subjects. But you could download and search it by category. So if you wanted something, say, on online marketing, okay, here's a blog post on online marketing. Here's the Facebook post to promote your blog post. In other words,
Wow.
here's the headline, subheadline, a quick teaser, read the rest here. That would take them to where you post it. And I did that for LinkedIn and Twitter. Quickly grew that to a 6-figure business, but with much lower cost because I was already paying for the content. Right.
Love
And
that.
so to me, that was more about wealth creation and multiple streams of revenue than it was just saying, hey, look at me, I built another business. I was all about, I'm going to get financial freedom so I can have time freedom and eventually go live in a boat, which I had no idea I would do at the time, but that's where I wanted to go. And so Dan said, it's more about that. The other thing he told me, which I thought was pretty amazing, you can choose to spend your time becoming the best at what you do, or you can choose to spend your time marketing yourself so you're perceived as the best at what you do. That's where the money is.
Yeah, you got to be careful though, because that's what everybody. I mean, like you see the courses out there where you get shit information, but the perception of the person who sold it to you is so high that even the shit information is kind of coated with a glitter because you're looking at it from oh wow, this person had the prestige and the authority and was able to produce this for me. And so you see that a lot. They spend all their time with producing the marketing that sells it instead of actually selling something that's
as I said, you have to be able to deliver the goods or you don't have a sustainable business. However, I never went to art school. I was a hack at desktop publishing, self-taught at Quark Express and Photoshop. I had to hire editors because I knew how to write, but I couldn't spell. So but I created a newsletter business, which made a lot of money. 1,200 subscribers in 8 different countries, right? It made a lot of money, but were there better writers? Yes. Were there better desktop publishing and designers? Hell yeah. But you know what? I created the newsletter guru. I was the newsletter guru. The newsletter guru is saving small business one newsletter at a time. And I wore a cape and I did all this different stuff. And I went and spoke as the newsletter guru. And people all throughout the Glacier Kennedy organizations, well, where do I go for newsletters? Oh, go to the newsletter guru or go to the newsletter guy or go to Jim, that newsletter, whatever it was. They associated me with being the smartest at newsletters. I was pretty good, but I guarantee there's probably 50 people smarter than me at that. Maybe, I don't know. But the point is, I anointed myself and people came to know me as the newsletter expert, and it served me very well.
I love it, man. Let's leave it at that, dude. Fascinating. You can choose a niche and own that category, which is what you did. So thank you very much, dude. What else do you have to add before we kick this off here?
If anybody wants to connect, go to getjimpalmer.com. It's my home base, getjimpalmer.com. That's about it.
Perfect, dude. Getjimpalmer.com. Captain Jim Palmer, captain of not the ship on the ocean, but the ship on the land today. And so
no more floating home. We're now in a rolling home. Coming to a city near you. No.
Literally, though. Literally.
Pretty much.
All right, Jim. I had a pleasure, man. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll keep in touch.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that podcast episode. And if you want to get a free copy of my book, go to kylesbook.com and you can get a copy there. I'll talk with you soon.